for you folks today, but no heavy equipment. The mines in Jerome and the smelter here at Clarkdale were shut down permanently in January.
Some of you folks have had the chance to visit at the National Monument, which is just a couple of miles away from our station, or perhaps it's just a name archaeologists gave these people. We have no idea what they called themselves, as they had no written language. But it was the Sinawa who built the villages, those of which you can visit and see at Tuzagood or Montezuma Castle. We'll be...
Another small one on down here, just a little bit.
Folks, we hope you got a look at those cliff dwellings as we went by. You also may have noticed a couple of opposite side of the river. It dead ends, the road dead ends about 12 miles from this point, right at the mouth of Sycamore Canyon and the trailhead for the wilderness hiking trails. That point actually marks the like somebody wasn't watching where they were going over there on that road. Hope nobody was hurt. Well, TAPCO stood for the Arizona Power Company. It was the... He knows for certain what happened. Archaeologists have a lot of different theories. Most archaeologists today would probably agree that they seem to have moved out of the area here during the early 1400s. And the most likely place they would have gone would have been up around the Hopi Indian villages in northeastern Arizona. The Hopi have a number of old legends and oral traditions that talk about the area down here and arriving late and being absorbed into the Hopi. Evidence that the natural resources were beginning to be badly depleted after several hundred years of occupation in here. Evidence of soil depletion, salt buildup in the soil from irrigation. It's likely they had cut all of the timber for miles around for fuel and building purposes. That would have made those things more difficult to get, and also would have driven out a lot of the animals they hunted. So the most likely theory to me seems to be that we had a kind of a population explosion coupled with a downturn in the productivity of the natural resources, made it harder and harder to feed everybody, and so they began moving out, moving to other areas. Whenever we're within sight of the Verde River, keep a lookout for those great blue herons. We've been seeing quite a number of them along the way. We'll also be seeing a number of ducks out here. Most of the ducks we're seeing right now are mergansers. You'll see both the male and the female. They look quite a bit different. I mentioned old Senator Clark, who owned the mines up there in Jerome. He was a millionaire from the copper mining country up around Butte, Montana. And in the mid-1880s, Clark had seen some samples of Jerome copper ore. Came down here to take a look, geologist pick in his hand, and He knew the copper. So in 1888, he purchased the then struggling little United Verde mine and several other promising mining claims up there in Jerome. And over the next 30 or 40 years, he took out several $100 million more worth of copper from the mines there in Jerome. Another thing our passengers often ask us about here is rattlesnakes. Do we see rattlesnakes on the trip? Well, occasionally, not frequently. Haven't seen any out yet this spring, although they should be coming out pretty soon if it stays this warm. Probably the place we most often have seen them is right along this stretch here, where we have this nice steep bank right on beside the train on the left. In the summertime, we'll sometimes see a rattler out there sunning itself on one of these ledges here. It's nothing to worry about, folks. They very seldom jump over into the cars here and cause any trouble. We'll be coming up to a little side canyon here in just a couple of minutes. This side canyon comes in from the left, and we'll then be making a broad curve around to the right and crossing this side canyon on a high trestle. This is the highest and longest of the bridges or trestles on our canyon, and according to this version of the story, when they reached this point, their foreman told them they'd have to build this high trestle over the canyon, so they named the canyon after their foreman and called it SOB Canyon. Folks, this is SOB Canyon that we're crossing at this time. It's about 150 feet from the railroad tracks down to the bottom of the canyon. And I should mention to you that we do not allow bungee jumping off the train, in case any of you were thinking. Right in this one little area here, this one little pocket around SOB Canyon, you'll see some of the ocotillo growing here, these plants that have a number of thin stems coming up from a common base. They normally grow lower down on the desert, down southern part of the state, but apparently conditions are just right in this one in a couple of weeks or so. Some of them look like they're getting almost ready to bloom, and you'll also notice some of the banana yucca along here. I see some of them, those stems are just starting to be sent up. They'll have beautiful white blooms on them in another few days probably. In the early days of the mining up there in Jerome, all of the mining was done in shaft. Santa Fe, Prescott, and Phoenix Railroad. So Clark then built a narrow gauge railroad line out of Jerome over the mountain, which linked up with the Santa Fe, Prescott, and Phoenix Railroad at a place then known as Jerome Junction, just outside the present town of Chino Valley. This narrow gauge railroad was used to haul the copper out until this rail line down to the other side of the town of Camp Verde was created approximately 8 million years ago, the geologists tell us, as a result of a major fault or break in the rock layers that form the Earth's surface. This fault line ran right through where the town of Jerome is located today, and it was in fact because of the fault that the copper deposits there in Jerome were lifted up and exposed where they could be located and mined successfully several million years later. On this side of the fault line, the area that's now the Verde Valley was actually dropped downward several thousand feet over many hundreds of years to form the valley. Down below Squaw Peak, which I pointed out to you earlier, down at the lower end of the valley near Camp Verde, the downfaulting of this block of land left a barrier that acted as a natural dam and blocked the river that began flowing through the valley here. As a result, the water was backed up, the valley gradually flooded, and for several million years, what's now the Verde Valley was a large shallow lake. All of this light-colored limestone that is so prevalent throughout the Verde Valley, you see it over here on the left of us, and just ahead formed those cliffs back where the cliff dwellings were. This limestone was all formed from sediments deposited in the bottom of this shallow lake that filled the valley for several million years. If you look over across the valley from us off the right-hand side, just about directly across, a little bit back towards the rear, you'll notice a place where this light-colored limestone ridge comes in from the right, from behind us, and then stops very suddenly and abruptly, almost directly opposite us. If you let your eyes continue on from that point to the left, you'll notice you're looking at red sandstone. There's a nice big hedgehog cactus down in that little cut in the basalt in bloom. That's deep. That's because the river's having to cut through a much harder layer of rock there at that point. This mountain over across from us off the right, just ahead a little ways where you see all that red rock exposed, is curiously enough known as Black Mountain. Actually, it gets its name because there is another layer of this very dark basalt up on the top of it. Right on the other side of Black Mountain is Sycamore Canyon in the wilderness area. We'll be going right by the mouth of Sycamore Canyon in a few minutes. And that layer of bright red rock, there's actually 3 different strata of reddish colored rock over there in the sides of Black Mountain, but the brighter of those red rock layers about midway, the level of the river was about a foot below that little platform near the top of the gauging station. About 3 weeks ago, it was up maybe halfway between where it is now and that platform, so that'll give you an idea how much water can come down through this canyon here. About 50% of our original riparian areas here in the state. Today they estimate only about 0.5% of all the land area in Arizona consists of riparian areas. Yet about 70 to 80% of the wildlife is dependent either directly or indirectly on these riparian areas. They're under a lot of pressure from grazing and recreational use, so they do need us to protect them as best we can. You also get a nice view of that monocline again looking back off the right-hand side. But that middle one, the larger one, is actually a bear cave. We went up and looked in that, and it's completely bare. Not a thing in it at all. It's, oh, I'm sorry. The very bright green leaves are the cottonwoods. We'll also be seeing the willows and the white-barked sycamore up in here a lot. Also keep a lookout for clumps of green growth up in many of these trees. It's kind of a yellowish green growth. This is mistletoe, a parasite that gets into many of these trees. If one of those trees, that road I mentioned earlier on, the access road to Sycamore Canyon, dead ends right out at the end of that basalt cliff, a power pole out there. There's a parking area there and the trailhead for the Parsons Trail back into Sycamore Canyon. And this is Sycamore Canyon opening up across the river from us to the north. Sycamore Canyon is a designated wilderness area on the National Forest. As a wilderness area, there are no roads back there in Sycamore Canyon at all. And there are no public roads beyond the end of that basalt cliff back into the Verde River Canyon either. That's straight ahead of us, and that's where we're headed. Most of this land on both sides of the river here is National Forest land. Other side, Pete Sandstone. It's by far the oldest rock layer found any place on our trip here where this particular rock strata is visible. The rest of the way, it's still buried beneath the surface. Just above and behind the Tapete sandstone is a grayish, putty-colored rock layers in the southwest here. If you're looking at a cliff, the older rocks are at the bottom. The higher up on the cliff you go, the younger the rocks are. So this natural sequence can be disturbed by folds such as you saw there at the monocline, or by faults. Now we're just coming by a nice fault line here that, if you look at this little narrow canyon, side canyon just across the river from us, this actually, it marks a fault line. If you look carefully, you'll notice these 4 rock strata I've just described to you are not continuous on both sides of this canyon. In fact, the 2 lower layers, the Tapete sandstone and Martin limestone, disappear immediately after passing the mouth of that canyon. They're buried again beyond that point. And the Redwall limestone, which was high up on the cliff behind the houses, is now right at train level directly across from us. So there's been a displacement of several hundred feet up that fault line. There is one more home out here around this next bend, headed to the public road there at the mouth of Sycamore Canyon and back into Clarkdale. Keep a lookout as we come around the shoulder of the hill over there on the right. Look for a large gray rock outcropping out on the shoulder of the hill. It'll look as we came by. If you didn't want another chance at a picture, we will be coming right back by here again on the return trip, so just let one of your attention back out to Clarkdale. Nothing until we get out into Perkinsville, a little more than 10 miles up the line. The Alvarez Ranch here is the home of a gentleman by the name of Domingo Alvarez and his wife, Elnora. This little ranch was homesteaded here by Domingo.
You're on some kind of drugs, I don't see.
There's a great blue crane. It's worth going to Mississinawa just to see them.
have about 1 million people ask me how come they don't paint that house. The only answer I can come up with is when they painted that house, they didn't have to paint all the rest of everything. So if they leave it like that, it all looks the same.
Yeah.
any difference.
Nope.
Sound of a gun.
Visiting there, and had to set a flight up around 2, and we still may do so after we get back. Also, we're enjoying Ken Michael's singing. Ken has some audio cassette tapes of his songs and music. He'll be out there in the area where he's ready to board the train after we get back. So, he's one of them to tell you the techniques that
heat?
Yes.
It's under, typically here, I think it would be 95. That's the way it is at Beavercreek. Typically like 100 people around. That's right.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it does. But if they were actually two separate words, then we would...
Well, Peter and Tim, you stand right there. I think I can get one. Shh. Shh. We didn't see that. Let's see if she comes.
It went over to that.
Brianna! We get to walk by the water over here. Really?
Birds are filled with mud. See all our nest? Hanging right up here. See that long crevice open? Yeah. Okay, just above it, the next two indentations.
No, he is a little bit more.
See the holes? The mud?
Is it?
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah.
He does pretty good. He does.
Straight over there. Stressful life.
Up there?
Seems that over the ages, children are over 7 centuries ago, and receiving an invitation into this cliff-dwelling home, what you would have seen might well have been something like this cutaway model of Montezuma Castle. On the top floor, the elderly village lookout keeps his solitary vigil. His eyes search for approaching danger to those working the fields below the castle. It seems that over the ages, children and their actions change very little. On the 4th floor, you'll find a concerned mother scurrying to reach her adventuresome son, precariously balanced on the edge of the roof. On the 3rd floor, an aging man leads his blind wife across the balcony. You'll also meet women busily preparing food, getting supplies from storerooms, making pottery and grinding corn. Usually women ground the corn, their staple food, only in small as-needed quantities and prepared it in various ways. Weavers used the 2nd floor loom to weave cotton breechcloths, bags, and blankets. Today, you can see examples of their varied weaving patterns in the visitor center. Villagers used the wooden ladders as stairways to carry up provisions from fields and water from Beaver Creek. On the ledge at the base of the central tower-like section, a man prepares to start a fire using a friction drill. Nearby, a young woman awaits the returning hunters who bring wild game as variety to the village diet. We encourage you to think beyond ancient stone walls and vacant rooms to the remains of a once vibrant village, a village of people who
This is the view from the Montezuma Well south.
It doesn't look like they.
I think that they look like little ground squirrels.
Fast.
Yeah. All kinds of.
Hard to imagine. Oh, there's holes. Look, those little ground squirrels. See, there's worms. Oh, there's another little ground squirrel.
Where you're from now? Oh, it'll be just out the back door. Huh?
Oh, look at all those ducks.
Smells skunk.
Oh, look there, I see a turtle. Way down there where that rock. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a turtle. He's sunning himself.
See him, where do you see him?
See that white rock by all that moss down there?
Oh, way down there. See the white, I can
See, he's moving.
see the white rock down there at the bottom. There's a turtle right there on the rock. It's cool.
They had her in the camera.
There's Gill animals can't live.
Oh, really?
This used to be an Indian dwelling. I guess they're Indians, prehistoric anyway.
There it is. That's sort of a
Thin bill.
yeah. What color chest? Is that the one we keep hearing?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You want to narrate here, Margaret? Right straight ahead is a few rocks that's got names.
Talking.
Sort of a monuments to the Red Rock formations. To the west of the highway, entering Sedona. Swing around to your right now when you're done. She's cutting to the right now, and then when she gets down the highway here, why, we'll have pretty much of the Red Rock area photographed.
Here's where we saw that kid with that dog. Oh, this is just a shot of Oak Creek Canyon. Awfully beautiful sight. Sure enjoy this trip. Hope to see more beauty. And here's some more beauty on the opposite side of the road. Well, except for that.
It's rather hazy today, but I hope it's a little clearer on the film than it is here.
Going up the bank and then come up back.
After a hard day's fishing at Dan Delaney's Rainbow Trout Farm in Sedona, Arizona. Well fed, full of fish, ready to go home. This here's a little pond where you catch the fish out of. Here's where they clean the fish for you for a nominal fee. First they charge for the fish. But all told, it isn't too bad. I've sort of figured it up and it comes to approximately $3.50 a meal. You bring your own potato salad. They furnish the grills to cook the fish, furnish the pole, the net, That was the area around the Rainbow Trout Farm. Ray Kerbaugh used to work here. Always come over a little more often.
Was there? The way he was going.
We're going north now through Oak Creek Canyon. We just left that area up there. These pictures are a little wobbly. Don't blame me. Karen's driving.
Don't blame me, it's the road.
She says don't blame her, it's the road.
Like this.
See what I mean? Yeah, get back over to the other side of the seat. Now she straightened me up.
vegetation and stuff can grow up that.
What?
It just amazes me how vegetation can grow on the sides of that.
Hanging on for dear life.
There's some people down there, but none of them's got a swimsuit on. They're tired. Inner tube.
Oh, they go tubing down through there?
Oh, yeah. They don't even need an inner tube. You just slide down the rock in the water.
While they're sliding on the rocks. The water keeps your butt cool.
Just a
A
nice,
lot,
nice distance back there.
a lot of times, if most of these people want to see it just as well as you do, but there's some of those buggers will get right on your tail and just hang right there, just
Oh, that was that lady that was...
to more or less intimidate you.
Came down, and so we had one lane traffic there, and then they... yeah, there it is.
There was a place back here where the Last Supper of Christ was carved out of sandstone. A beautiful thing. And some vandalism knocked all the heads off. The old boy worked real hard, built it back up. They come in and done it again.